Hi scientists, it's Jessica Power, one of the science curriculum coordinators at Kansas City Public Schools. Scientists, we've got some interesting things today, and we're going to talk about plants. Now plants are all around us. There are trees, there's grass, there's flowers. Even when you go to the grocery store, fruits and vegetables come from plants. So we're going to take a look at plant parts today and focus on what those parts do. Now, even though plants look very different, there's very different kinds of plants, all plants have similar parts. Now those parts might look slightly different. A oak tree leaf looks very different from a lily leaf, and vice versa. So we've got a plant here today that we're going to take a look at. But first, before we get to our plant, I want to go over what those plant parts are. Okay? So, scientists, the parts of a plant are on the chart right here for us. First and foremost, I'm going to start with the bottom of the plant and work my way up. Okay? Now, below the ground or below the dirt where plants are, there are parts of a plant called roots. And those roots, as you can see, kind of branch out. There's usually one large root that comes down from the stem of the plant. And then there's roots that branch out. Now the job, or we call that the function in science, the job of the roots is to keep the plant in the ground so that it's safe and doesn't come flying out. And it also is to absorb water and nutrients. Now, when we eat food, scientists, we are eating nutrients. We're getting calcium, we're getting vitamins, we're getting protein, carbohydrates. We are getting things, vitamins and minerals that our body needs to stay alive. Well, plants don't necessarily have mouths and they don't eat food on their own, but plants make their own food. So a plant's roots help to absorb water and nutrients. Things like vitamins and minerals like the plants need to survive. Now the water comes up through the roots and then it goes up through the stem. Now the stem of a plant, scientists, is to support the plant. It keeps the plant upright. You can see in my plant over here, this flower, how the stem is going up. This stem is helping keep the flower up in the air. So it provides support, it gives it its structure or shape, and it also moves water through the plant. Now my plant needs a little bit of water, which is actually why we're using it today to learn about it. But if the plant needs water really bad, you start to see that stems start to droop and they start to fall over. And then once you give the water to the plant and the roots absorb that water, the water goes up through the plant and the stem stands back up. So our roots are going to bring in water and nutrients to the plant, keep the plant rooted in the ground or in the pot. Then we have our stem. Our stem is going to provide support, so it gives that plant support to stand up tall, and it's going to move water through the plant as well. Now attached to the stem or at the base of the plant are leaves. Leaves help to make food for the plant. A plant is really unique. I mentioned that plants don't really have mouths. They don't eat food like we do. Plants make their own food. And the leaves help them to make that food. The main job of a leaf is to absorb sunlight. So we bring the energy from the sun into the plant. And it's also to absorb carbon dioxide, which comes from the air around us. We'll get to that way later, okay? So leaves are going to help the plant make food. Now going up the stem past the leaves, we have two parts left. We have the flower and the petals, just like my flower has white petals right here. And those petals are going to attract insects or animals. And attract means it just brings the insects or animals to the flower. Have you ever seen a bee that comes over and it kind of sits in the center of a flower? Well, it picks that flower based on its petals. It likes its petals and it draws the bee's attention, or an animal. Sometimes birds come over to flowers, things like that. Now in the very center of the flower, the petals, are a bunch of seeds. Now seeds are what grow new plants. So in the very middle of my flower, I have some seeds. And if I were to take these seeds, I could plant those and grow a new Gerber daisy. That's what this plant is, okay? So let's go through these plant parts one more time because then I'm gonna show you on the real plant. Starting from the bottom, we have our roots, and those roots are gonna keep the plant in the ground, right? It's gonna keep that plant stable so it doesn't come out of the ground. If you've ever seen tree roots before, tree roots are really deep and spread out really far. The bigger the tree, the bigger the roots. So the roots are gonna keep the plant in the ground and absorb water and nutrients. When you water a plant, scientist, you don't water the leaves. The leaves aren't gonna take in the water. You water at the base of the plant or where the dirt or soil is. Once that water is absorbed into the roots, it's gonna come up through the stem. So the stem is gonna move water throughout the plant so the whole plant has water. And it's also gonna support the plant, right? It's gonna keep those flowers held up high, those leaves as well, like on this plant. Moving to the top, we have our flowers, and those flowers are made of petals, and petals look very different. A Gerber daisy petal looks very different from a lily, which looks really different from a rose, which looks really different from a hibiscus, right? There's different kinds of petals based on the plant. And then in the center of those petals, we find seeds. And those seeds are what we can disperse, right? So we can take the seed from a flower, or insects will take those seeds, or different animals will take those seeds, and they'll spread them throughout, and that's what gives us new plants in different places. So scientists, let's take a look at this plant. So first and foremost, this is what's called a Gerber daisy. It's a summer plant. It likes heat and it likes sunshine. And unfortunately, the temperatures are starting to get cool. And this poor Gerber daisy doesn't like that. So, for the sake of science today, we're gonna take the Gerber daisy out of the pot, out of the dirt, and we're gonna take a look at its roots, we're gonna take a look at the leaves, we're gonna take a look at the stems and the flowers, okay? Now I mentioned earlier, this poor Gerber daisy needs some water, okay? So, first things first, let's take a look at the flowers. Let's go top to bottom of this plant this time, okay? Now, there's two flowers currently on it, and you can see one is a newer flower. This Gerber daisy is a newer flower than this one. Now, these brown spots on the Gerber daisy are just from the sun. So they've just gotten a little bit too much sun exposure, and it starts to turn brown. Now, you notice as flowers start to fade away, or they start to die, they start to fall off. So with this Gerber daisy, some of its petals have already fallen off, but you'll see the petals just come off, nice and easy. And then eventually, and I left this guy on here for us to see, this is what a Gerber daisy's seed or center looks like with no petals. So a Gerber daisy, if you can see over here at the bottom of it, it's kind of like a bowl. It creates like kind of like a cone shape. But this is where those seeds would come off from the center of the flower and would create new ones. Now this center is no longer living. You can see it's not functioning anymore, okay? But these flowers will eventually look like this. And then you can see, if I can carefully pull them off, yes, these are those seeds that I had talked about. So these seeds get carried by different animals or insects, and if they land and they start to grow, they'll create more Gerber daisies. Okay, now a Gerber daisy doesn't necessarily have leaves that come from the stem like this plant. A Gerber daisy's leaves grow from the bottom at the base, so where the stem of the flower connects with the root, that's where the Gerber daisy's leaves grow. And as you can see, this Gerber daisy has tons of leaves. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this Gerber daisy out of the dirt. Dig around a little bit to loosen it up. It's just wanting to bring the whole thing out. So let's move it over. I have a garbage bag below me, so that way the dirt can spill over on the garbage bag. And these roots are really in there, you guys. Oh my goodness gracious. Just gonna make a mess. I'm gonna tip the pot over so the dirt goes on. We're almost there, scientists. We're almost there. Okay, I see a root. Try not to get dirt everywhere. So scientists, this is what's called a root ball. And it's the base of the plant. Now this Gerber daisy grew really well this summer, okay? So it created lots of flowers, was very healthy. So this is a root ball. And the root ball just has tons and tons of roots. As the daisy grew, the roots grow. So here's our Gerber daisy. And here's our root ball, okay? So this is what our plant looks like. Now you can see, I'm gonna hold the Gerber daisy by its leaves. Do you see these strings? This is a really good picture. See these? They kind of look like straws. These are the roots of the plant. So scientists, these are what, there's a good one. These are what's absorbing that water and those nutrients to make the plant healthy and grow really well. Now scientists, when I planted this Gerber daisy in this pot, the leaves and the flowers were only about this big. And now you see how big the roots got. So as the plant grows, the roots grow, right? And the bigger the plant, the bigger the roots, the more water and nutrients that plant needs. So our job today, scientists, was to learn about the parts of a plant. And I showed you my Gerber daisy. Remember, plants have roots, they have stems, leaves, flowers, and seeds. So when you're out in your community, or maybe you have plants at home, go take a look at them. You might want to ask before you pull the plant out of the pot or pull the plant out of the ground. Not everybody likes their plants being unplanted. Take a look at the roots if you can, take a look at the leaves, take a look at the flowers, and as a scientist, make observations. How do the leaves of your plants that you find compare to other plants? How do the roots and the leaves of the plants you find compare to my Gerber daisy? That's what's interesting about science, scientists, is that even though these are all plants, they're still very different, but they still have the same parts. Scientists, I will see you back here next week and we'll talk more about plants. Have a great day.